Well, and all these kids haven't heard it either, so it's going to be fun.
When I came back from my mission in Mexico, the Korean War was on. And at that time, we had to go into the service if you're mentally or physically able, one place or another. But they gave a test to excuse me, people, and if you scored high enough on the test, they'd admit you into officer training, which I did at BYU. So I got a commission from the Air Force out of BYU. Barbara was expecting our first baby at that time, and the fighting was really heavy when we got the orders to report to active duty in July 28th of 1953. That's way back there.
That's crazy. Oh.
But anyway, my father, an interesting thing, to me it's interesting anyway, but he was one that let you make your own decisions, but now and then he had an idea of what you really ought to do. And the officer training guide, or the officer guide in the Air Force said, if you're married, you're called, and you go to wherever you're sent, and then when you get your house established, then have your wife, family come. And Dad said, no, you take Barbara with you. She was expecting our first baby at the time. So anyway, we take off for Nashville, Tennessee, Seward Air Force Base, to report in. This is in July. And we were to report on the 28th of July in 1953, and it was that day that they signed the armistice between North and South Korea.
Across the country.
Which now they don't have the armistice anymore, as you know. A little more iffy right now over there. But so I don't have any war stories to tell anybody. We just went in, processed in, and then I had an 8-year obligation of active and reserve time, whatever the combination. And found out that we were to be assigned to Charleston, South Carolina. So I went and got traveler's checks. There were no credit cards in those days. You didn't have a credit card. And I got enough traveler's checks. I've calculated that, well, it's that many miles, that much gas, that much food, hotels, whatever. And we got into Charleston on the day before I was to report there. And I went to this motel in North Charleston. Check, and I had more money, but I didn't want to carry a lot of money with me. I didn't have enough money to pay the motel. And they wouldn't accept an out-of-state check. They wouldn't accept anything but cash. So I looked up in this little serviceman's directory that showed where people were around the world, I guess.
We didn't know how well we'd sleep in the car.
Anyway.
Yeah, being pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Anyway, she said she was about 13 months along at the time. So anyway, we got the name of Robert Royall, and I called this number because I couldn't rent a motel.
In his church directory.
He found the bishop, yeah.
That's right.
In the little serviceman's directory they had where they
The church directory, right.
But it was just a little tiny one they had for servicemen. Anyway, I called Bishop Royall. Fortunately, he was at home, and he gave me a little interview on the phone. He said, now, Brother Joe, do you possess the Melchizedek priesthood? I said, yes, I do. I'm just back from Mexico and Central America on a
Didn't
mission.
he ask if you've been on a mission?
Well, but he first, do you possess
Yeah.
the Melchizedek priesthood? Yes, I do. I told him I was on a mission, and we're there, and explained the fact that I didn't have enough money to rent a motel, and because the Charleston Air Force Base was so new, they didn't have an officers club yet. It was just being started. I didn't know that before. So, and then he said, where are you? So I looked down, tried to figure out where we were on the signs, and then he told me to go across the street to a service station. And he said, and I will call you. Well, first he said, I will call you in 5 minutes, but do you see that service station across the street? So, fine, and then hung up. And then about 5 minutes later, he called back to the motel where I was trying to get a room And he said, "You see that service station across the street?" Yes. He said, "You go there. I know the man, and you can write your check out for any amount you want." And went across it.
And we both about cried and went over.
But that'll let you know that there's a real fellowship. You know, you're like family wherever you are. So that's how we met. Huh?
That was the beginning of a great friendship.
A great one, and I'm very grateful for it too.
Oh my goodness sakes.
Anyway, we had a great experience there.
I love to hear you talk, impersonate GrandBob with his southern accent. It's so fun because it sounds just exactly like him. You know.
He really was a great bishop, and his wife.
He
of course.
thought he had a good wife. He would tell us how great she was.
Oh, well, he thought that maybe.
And we agreed.
But anyway, then we're there 2 years and released, and the last day before leaving active duty, as I mentioned, I had the privilege of baptizing the young officer from Clemson University that was taking my place.